Okay, so we've all been hearing about the federal government shutdown, right? Well, beyond all the political noise, there's a procedural trap that has just snapped shut on the entire mining industry. Today, we're going to break down exactly how this MSHA shutdown is pushing operators into a really high-stakes corner, where the rules of the game have literally changed overnight.
So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start by really understanding this procedural bind the shutdown has created and why a really important way to resolve issues is just gone. Then we'll talk about why the compliance clock is still ticking and shift into an immediate decision framework you can use right now. And we'll wrap up with what you absolutely need to be keeping an eye on as this all unfolds.
All right, first things first. This shutdown has created a really serious procedural bind for operators. You could say the scales of risk have been dramatically tipped, and now the full weight of all this uncertainty is landing squarely on your shoulders.
Let's look at the numbers, because this is where it gets really interesting. On October 1st, 2025, MSHA furloughed nearly half its staff. That's 711 employees sent home. But, and this is the crucial part, they kept 879 people on the job. The decision of who stayed versus who went home, well, that's the very source of this trend.
And this right here, this is the core of the whole imbalance. Look, on one side, the tools you use for dialogue, they're gone. No more informal conferences. The representatives you talk to are all furloughed. But on the other side, the enforcement machine, it's still running at full throttle. Inspections are continuing, investigations are proceeding, and those critical deadlines for contests and abatements, they are still active. So MSHA's enforcement arm is at full strength, while your primary tool for negotiation has just completely vanished.
So, let's really focus on that missing tool for a second. This brings us to our second section. A key resolution path is now closed. We really need to understand the significance of what's been lost here.
So, what exactly was an informal conference anyway? Well, think of it as the practical, common-sense middle ground. It was the critical off-ramp you could take before getting stuck in costly, time-consuming litigation. It let operators and MSHA resolve citations efficiently, saving everybody time and money. It was basically the pressure release valve in the system. And now, that option is just gone. Every single conference and litigation representative, the people who actually facilitate these essential meetings, has been furloughed. The door to negotiation hasn't just been closed, it's been chained and locked. This brings us to a really critical point. The clock is ticking. The takeaway here is simple and it's pretty stark. Just because a key tool has been taken out of your toolbox, your legal obligations have not changed at all. Just sitting back and waiting for the shutdown to end, that's just not an option. So this leads to the central question for every single operator right now. With that informal path totally blocked, what are your real options when a new citation lands on your desk?
The answer is this new forced choice. Path number one, you abate and you pay. This means you fix the alleged violation, you pay the fine, and you accept the citation, no negotiation. Path number two, you file a formal contest. This preserves your right to challenge it, but it also commits you to a formal, costly, and time-consuming legal process. That middle ground has completely vanished.
Okay, so that's the problem. It's a tough spot. So let's pivot and talk about the solution. Section 4 is all about your immediate decision framework. We're going to walk through a clear, actionable checklist for what you should be doing right now.
Okay, here is your internal game plan. First, pull together every single proposed assessment you have with a deadline that's coming up during this shutdown. Second, triage that list. Which ones would you normally have just taken to an informal conference? Identify those. Third, you've got to assess them by gravity. How serious are they? And finally, and this is a big one, you need a realistic gut check on your resources. Can your internal team actually handle a bunch of formal contests, or do you need to start budgeting for outside counsel?
The source material puts it perfectly. Without answers, budget requests should be tied to rights preservation and triage. In other words, your immediate goal isn't necessarily resolution, it's survival. It's all about acting now to preserve your options for later.
And finally, let's talk about looking ahead. Section 5, what to monitor now. This whole situation is fluid, and these are the key developments that are going to shape your strategy in the coming weeks. Here's what you need to be watching like a hawk. First, people. Any word at all on when those conference reps will be recalled. Second, policy. Is MSHA issuing any official guidance on interim solutions or post-shutdown options? And third, process. What's the processing time for new assessments looking like? This is going to dictate your response time and your potential workload. So at the end of the day, we're left with this new reality. The easy path, that common sense middle ground of the informal conference, it's closed for now. And that leads to the final, critical question that every single operator needs to be asking themselves. Is your team ready for the formal fight?